guys, how's it going? Laura with Garden Answer. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 3 different methods of composting. And I've really been looking forward to this video because it's an area where I know I could be doing much better, not being so wasteful with my garden and my kitchen scraps. You know, we moved into our house about 1.5 years ago and I kind of dropped the ball on composting, and I've really been wanting to pick it back up again. So by composting all of these things that would otherwise we'd be tossing and they'd be sitting in a landfill after, we can be creating something that is super valuable for our soil, because compost makes soil healthier, which makes our plants healthier and more resistant to insects and disease. And as gardeners, we all want that. So we partnered with Gardener Supply and I asked if they'd be willing to send out a few different composters so that I have some examples to show you. And I think the types that I chose fit the vast majority of gardeners and gardening situations. So if you're a person who's been interested in composting and just doesn't know how to get started or what type of composter to use, I hope this video is helpful. So the first style is called vermicomposting, or composting with worms. And it's something that I've done in the past a few times. I've had really great luck with it and it's easy to do, so I thought it'd be a great one to start off with. And also because it's a method that absolutely anybody can try. You don't have to have a huge garden space or a garden full of plants. You don't have to even have a small garden. Maybe you just have a couple of house plants, or you want a better way to recycle your kitchen scraps. This is a method that allows you to do all of that. And the other benefit, other than the fact that it's really small, it does not take up very much space inside your house at all, is that worms work really fast. So you can have compost in less than 2 weeks, which is pretty amazing. And it doesn't stop. So it works all through the year, even in the winter months. So your traditional compost bins and piles outside, when the temperature cools down, it gets really cold in the winter, those compost piles, they either slow way down or they stop altogether until it warms up. This one doesn't, this one just keeps on going. So this one is called a worm farm composter, and the idea is that the worms inside will eat through and digest your kitchen scraps, making you really good compost and compost tea that you can use on your houseplants or out in your garden. So let me show you how it works. First of all, you have your base layer, and this is where any excess moisture collects, or the worm juices, also called compost tea, which is really excellent to water your houseplants with. And then you can see at the bottom there's a built-in drain so that you can access that compost tea anytime. And then you have your filter, which keeps any debris or even some of the worms from falling down into that base tray. Then you have your trays, which is where I'm going to be putting the worms, and I'm only be starting with 1 out of the 2 trays in the beginning. Worm composting works pretty much the same as regular compost in that you need a balance of both carbon and nitrogen. So I'll grab some shredded paper and dried leaves first. This is the bedding for the worms, also called the carbon source, and fill the tray up about halfway. So the bedding helps control odor and moisture, helps with aeration, and it does provide feed for worms. Then I'll sprinkle some coffee grounds on top of that to provide a little grit, which is really good for the worms' stomachs. Then I'll settle the worms in on top of that. So at this point, I'm just gonna cover with the lid and let them sit for a week. And after that time, I can start adding the nitrogen source. So these are your kitchen scraps, which you can put in a layer on top of the worms. So the worms work through those kitchen scraps, digest them, and as you keep layering more on, you do want to make sure to add a handful of bedding along with the kitchen scraps every time to keep a good balance. So as soon as the worms reach the top of that first tray, that's when you can add your second tray on. And then you want to put a little bedding and food in the bottom of that tray, and the worms will start to work their way up into that second tray. Once they've all made it up there, then you want to let this tray sit. This one's just full of worm compost, worm castings. You want to let them sit for about a month so they can mature, and then you can use them. And then once they filled the second tray, then you put this tray on top of that one, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like a never-ending cycle of one tray on top of the other, with those worms just working through those scraps and creating compost for you. So the worms will eventually work through about a ½ pound of kitchen scraps a day, but not right in the very beginning when they're trying to acclimate and grow and kind of get used to their new home. So if you have an excess of kitchen scraps, you can always put them in like a kitchen crock, like this one right here. It looks pretty, so you can keep it on your counter. But the cool thing about these is that they have a charcoal filter which fits up in the lid that filters out any odors, so you don't smell it in your kitchen. And then if you want to make it even more clean, you can get special compostable bags instead of using regular plastic, which you can't compost. And I'll drop a link down below for those. The next kind of composter is called a tumbler, and these are really great. They're like a 1 step up from your worm composter. They're meant to be kept outside, and really for any size of lot, you can have a huge space or a small space. You're not going to get an enormous amount of compost from these, but you'll get a nice steady stream. But the best part about these is that they're great for people that maybe can't handle a traditional type compost pile or compost bin system where you have to get in with a tool and physically turn it. These make it so much easier because all you have to do is tumble them like this, and they come in a range of sizes. You can get them smaller than this and bigger than this, and even ones that are lower to the ground where all you have to use is your foot. You don't have to use any upper body strength. So I really like that feature of the tumbler. And this is really cool because this is called a dual batch composter, so you can actually have 2 batches of compost going at the same time, which means you can have a successive kind of crop of compost coming out instead of kind of putting all of your eggs in one basket and only getting 1 crop at a time, because it does take several weeks to cook your compost and get it ready. So if you can have a couple different batches going and one is maybe 2 weeks ahead of this one, then you'll just kind of have that steady stream going. So they're really easy to use. You just pull the door open and then you want to layer in your nitrogen and carbon sources. So first you go in with a layer of nitrogen, which is your kitchen scraps, your green stuff you've cut out of the garden, you know, more of the moist kind of materials. And then you go in with a layer of your carbon source, which is also called your brown materials, which is like shredded paper or dried leaves, cardboard, things that are not moist. Fill your bin until it reaches about 10 inches from the top, and then at this point you can add moisture if you need to. You want to shoot for a damp consistency, but not soggy, but it's okay if you accidentally add a little bit too much water because there are drain holes throughout the whole tumbler. So then you can tumble about 5 to 10 times every 2 to 3 days, and then you will have fresh compost in a matter of weeks. And the last style I want to show you is bin composting, which is really great for people who want to compost on a little bit of a larger scale, but in a very economical way. So this is called a 3-bin wire composter, and you could certainly make your own bins out of various materials, but I really like this one because it comes in looking very uniform. It comes with these little clips right here so that you could make it 3 bins or 2 bins or 1 bin, whatever you currently have the room for in your garden. So you could have 3 different batches of compost currently cooking, or you could have like mine right here. I have nothing in this one yet started. I've got a layer of my nitrogen material going here, and I'm getting ready to start a batch right here. And then this is an area where I've just been putting leaves I've been collecting out of my grass. So you can use them as like a hold for your carbon material so that when you're ready to use it, you've got it right here. And then you can just start layering it. So it's really nice because you can utilize it in so many different ways. So the procedure here is still the same. We want to shoot for an equal blend of nitrogen and carbon. So that means I'm going to go in with my layers, start with a nitrogen or green layer on the bottom, then go in with a carbon layer, and then repeat my layers until I get it, you know, to the height I want it to be. And then I need to add a little bit of moisture. We want to shoot again for damp consistency, but not soggy. So you can see at the side of the bins how there's a lot of holes, which is really great for aeration and airflow in the pile, but that also means that I'm going to need to keep my eye on it for moisture a little bit closer. I live in a very dry climate, so that means I might have to come in and sprinkle it a little bit more often to keep that damp consistency. If you live in a really rainy climate, that might mean that you need to cover your pile so that it doesn't get really soggy and stay wet for too long. So that's it, you guys. Those are the 3 styles of composters I wanted to show you today. And this video wasn't about how to compost. If you want to learn more details about that, we will put links to some really helpful guides down below. I just wanted to show you 3 styles and ways of composting. If you were considering getting started or you wanted to learn more about it, I hope that this video was helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.